conversation.
Perfect. Hi, everyone. Welcome to Raise, a panel discussion where we'll talk about some of the challenges and opportunities for scale-ups that want to step outside of the Nordics. By way of introduction, I'm Kevin Rutter, CFO of Goodwille, a professional services business that's been helping some of the hottest and fastest tech startups in the Nordics to scale into the UK market. We're a partner of the Nordic Startup Awards and have been helping previous finalists and winners to really gain traction in the UK. I'm really pleased to say that we're joined by a great panel today with Vegard, who will focus on things from a sales and marketing perspective, Joanna, who will talk from a marketing and PR angle, and Francois, who will focus on raising funds. We only have 20 minutes or so before we move to Q&A, so let's dive straight in. So to all panelists, firstly, what are the biggest challenges for a startup in terms of generating interest in a new country? And let's take this from a sales angle first. So Vegard, if you can go first, and panelists, feel free to introduce yourselves when you kick off with your first answers.
Yeah, again, my name is Vegard. My second surname is easier, it's Strand, so that can be pronounced. I have a background from computer science and economics. I've started as a programmer in something called Visma, and actually my baby is called Visma Business, and as far as I know, it's still the most used ERP system in the Nordic countries. So I'm quite proud of that. Later on, I moved into management and sales, mainly worked with telecom, bank, and finance. I've been chairman, CEO, and vice president in various international tech companies, both public companies and privately owned. I've traveled a lot, too much for a period, and lived a period in Dublin and a period in London. At the moment, for the last 16 years, I've been managing what's called the UT project together with my business partner, Willie, and we mentor and help companies to go out of Norway. We work with something like 80 companies, and I'm happy to state that many of them has been quite successful, and also been acquired by larger global companies. In doing this, we cooperate with a lot of, I would say, the best helpers in the various countries we work with, and in that way we work with, amongst others, Goodwille in the UK, that is handling quite a few of the companies we work with. In terms of the biggest challenges, I'd say that a short list. First, to select the market to enter. Actually, quite often we see that people aren't aware of the differences in culture, law, language, accessibility, cost, and competition. And to brag about us Norwegians, we can quite nice have a conversation in English, but very few can negotiate in German or French. And then to know the market is very key, and how to reach the customers. We often see people go abroad, and then they just pick a country and find out that that's a hard country to work with. But you need to find somewhere that your product is, I would say, unique. You don't need to sell all your products. You could pick the best one or the most suitable one for a start. And then, as a school book, build a business case from the customer side. How can they save money, earn money, or get a better life from buying your product? I tend to start presenting it for a local customer, but not the one on top of your list, because you may adjust your message based upon that.
Yeah.
And once your message is clear, I would say communicate it to your preferred customers through media, conferences, webinars, etc. And the last point is also very important and very basic. Make sure your language is fluent. I tend to use the example that in Norway, actually an aggressive salesperson can be quite positive. In the UK, it's not that positive to send an aggressive salesperson in a meeting.
Yeah.
So those are my sort of key points. I'll come back in more detail later.
Yeah, thanks, Vegard. If we can move to you, Joanna, from more of a sort of PR angle.
Sure. So my name's Joanna Dodd, and I run a company called Rochester PR Group. So we specialise in supporting clients on their market entry into the UK. So that's running campaigns that give them the best chance of being successful in the short, medium and long term. So just picking up a little bit from Vegard, I agree with a lot of what you're saying there about know the market and communicate. I suppose if I had to sum it up from what we would say is is the biggest challenge, the big one that we're always addressing is that you need to get known in a new market, so whether that is by the consumers or the employees that you're trying to attract or targeting the right customers or getting the right network, it's getting known by those people, by the right people, in the shortest amount of time, again, to give your business the best chance of success.
Thank you, Joanna. And Francois, to you, with a focus on the fundraising angle.
Yeah, so hi everybody, I'll keep mine very, very short. I'm obviously with a name like Francois. I'm French. I've been 30 years here in the UK, in London, and I've had a stint with Scandinavia twice. Once in Sweden, in Stockholm, where I built Speed Ventures. For the oldies amongst you, we became Europe's largest private fund and accelerator, building tech companies and exporting them. And the second time in Copenhagen, when I turned around a North Zone Ventures backed company out of Copenhagen, flipped it and sold it 3 years later in 2009. So I've been on both sides of the investor and the entrepreneur side of the table. When it comes to Nordic companies and attracting interest from investors here in the UK, one thing that I see the most is you are bland as hell. So cut the beige, the cream, and cut this view that you should not be outside of the norm. You actually have outstanding outliers, which is exactly what investors want. Nobody wants a copy of an Airbnb for cats or Uber for grandmas. We're all interested in finding the new thing that breaks all the books and all the rules, and something that is a generation, i.e. tech, 5 years ahead of its market, with a huge market. So be different, be very clearly and actively not following the white sheep, but be the black dog in a white sheep's flock. That's typically what we find. Way too many companies playing safe, playing secure, and then coming in here, which is a huge level of competition compared to what you guys have in the Nordics. Investors being very jaded and blasé about these nice little businesses, which is not what venture capital is looking for.
That kind of leads nicely to some degree into the next question, which is, what is about Nordic tech in particular that's so appealing to the rest of the world, and how do startups capitalize on that? So, I mean, if you want to just extend a bit with that question in mind, Francois, then we'll move to the others.
Yeah, sure. So, the geography and the education system means that the Nordics now, for over 20 years has been an amazing testing grounds, all the way back to the years of Nokia, where they were trying their winter tires before they switched businesses entirely and pivoted. Nordics have got 3 micro countries, roughly the size of New Zealand, if you're down south, with a very high education level, very low unemployment, which means that the kids, the smarts, and the ones coming out of university with amazing brains actually can try things, because I can always get a job and fall back to a paid employment. So you have a fundamental culture with a high IQ, a bunch of small countries where things can be tested very quickly. But the beauty of it is that most of them do not think local. It's very tempting, very easy, very comfortable to be a UK startup and think, well, 60 million people, if I take X% of that market, I actually have a profitable business. That should be my first aim. Whereas you don't have that luxury in the Nordics, which drives people to build stuff that is global from day one. And that's the appeal for international, prestigious venture capital funds who also only back things that will become global sensations.
Okay, interesting. Joanna, what are your thoughts on that?
Well, I think, I would agree. Nordics have done a great job, i.e. all the companies that have come before have done a great job in being successes, and that is definitely helps. I think from the media perspective, just taking that, a company coming from the Nordics, the media are always going to say, oh, that's going to be worth a look, because everybody who's come before you has done a great job, got good traction, and there have been lots of success stories. So that helps above anything. But then I would also pick up on what Francois just said, don't rely on that. You've now got to set yourselves apart, and you're absolutely right. Beige is no good. And describing yourself as, something that somebody else has described themselves as doesn't help either. So it's really about use everything that's come before you as a great starting point, and then really shout what makes you different.
Yeah, be different, but build on that great reputation that the Nordics already have in the UK. Vegard, your thoughts on that?
Well, I think in general in the Nordic, we are very keen on using new technology and developing it. From Norwegian perspective, I think one of the benefits we have is that if you go back several years, then we started developing the oil sector here. And with the oil sector came industry of supplying applications, hardware, etc. for developing that. And to get that approval, to get that used, the standards of the quality was very high. And some of those solutions are being now used, in other sectors. You have, wireless, etc. And also, but still, I think we have maintained the standard of quality that we need in what we're developing, which I think is very good. And from what I see is that other countries look towards the Nordic countries and see what they're doing in terms of technology. The disadvantage is that sometimes we go out and we tell people, look at this new fancy stuff. And they say, well, we're going to use it in 5 years' time, but we can be a bit early. But we're early adapters, but that can be a problem sometimes when we go out.
Okay, and you've worked with some great tech startups in Norway, Vegard. Most startups make mistakes. It's part of the journey. What are the most common ones that you see them make when they move to a new market? Well,
again, this is quite elementary. I often meet companies that is going abroad and there is a lack of a good plan. And also they tend, Norway, as you say, is quite small. We're 5 million citizens. So every market outside Norway is bigger than Norway. So you think that, if we go to the UK and only get a small percentage, then we will be large. They tend to forget that in a larger market, the competition is also even harder. Again, things takes much longer time than we expect, and also the cost. So you need to have a budget. If you don't have a budget to follow up, you shouldn't start. When we are involved, it's also because they don't have the relevant networks in the new market. But in fact, there's a lot of good helpers. There's a lot of good people that has done this before. There are organizations, we work quite a lot with Department for International Trade, and they do help us and give good advice, and that's actually for free. So that's something one should utilize. Also, again, back to the language. Sometimes they don't even have an English web page or the presentation. I can understand what there's writing, but it means something else. So they should be professional in their presentation, both in the layout and the language. I've seen many nice, funny words, as I said before. And the last thing, I think this is one of the main things I tend to focus on, is that often they focus on getting an investor and then get out. They should focus more on getting a customer, and then based upon the customer, they should get an investor. So I think that focus on getting customers, paying customers, should be core focus, because then you have a reference when you go out.
Yeah. So be different, sell that kind of Nordic thing that everybody loves in the UK, but actually understand a little bit more about the UK culture and market before you get into it quickly, so that it's not lost in translation almost literally.
No, because for instance, early on when I was in Italy, I understood that when I was invited for lunch, that meant we've gone a step forward in the negotiation. And I didn't understand why he wanted me for lunch and not a meeting in the office. But that's, you need to understand those things.
Absolutely. Just to the audience generally, if you do have any questions, please use the Q&A setting in Verbella, and I can put them to the panel at the end. And back to Goodwille. I'm CFO at Goodwille, remember. We are sponsoring Founder of the Year this year for the NSA Awards, and I know that many are in the room right now, so good luck for later on today. Changing tack a little bit, Francois, you work with a lot of founders. You help them get ready to pitch, to raise funds. How important are the founders themselves when it comes to raising investment? Should they be leading it? Are they best placed to do that? And how important is their vision aligns with potential investors?
So it's true, and apologies everyone, I didn't introduce what I actually do now. So we've got two small businesses. The first one is called Tomorrow. We're South London's largest tech workspace. We house small startups all the way to scale-ups. And we invite and host and advise a lot of Nordic companies as they enter the UK markets. We're very close to the Gatwick Airport with all the low-cost flights. Second business we do is called the Fundraising Bootcamp. Fundraising-Bootcamp. Guess what we do? It says it on the tin. We prepare, it's an investor preparedness course. It's 4 days, it's in person, and it's super intense. And we take you through the knowledge that you're not going to get on the internet, because you need to spend 20 years being royally screwed by investors or completely miss things that are going to kill your business to actually learn the hard way. So we've compressed all this into 1 day of knowledge, 1 day of practice, where if needed, we change your pitch, find a little golden or diamond in the rough and rebuild your pitch around what makes you faster, better, cheaper, etc. And the third day is all about getting access to our 2,500 investor list, prioritize them down to about 100. If you start with 100 highly qualified investors, you will close your round. We typically help late seed, Series A, Series B customers across the tech industry. So that's what we do. The biggest thing that investors invest in, and in fact the only thing that they have in the first round, is you, the founder. So if you remove you from the only thing that the company has, it has no assets, it has very few customers, if any, might have no revenue, might have no structure, a very poor team just being assembled. Difficult to assemble a team without cash, as we all know. So you have nothing except you. So one, again, be different, don't be a sheep. Number two, be yourself, because it's the only thing that they're going to value the entire business on. So coming to the UK with one founder and nobody else and nothing to show for still works, because if you have something truly disruptive, slightly ahead, not too far ahead, I think Vegard explained it very well. You can be too far ahead and then people will love you, but will watch from the sidelines and want to invest once you get some traction. Come in and focus on the team. The only thing that you can sell is your team. So a lot of people usually say, well, the team, it's all nice and good, but actually I don't have the cash to attract the best. And the best keep getting offers, paying them twice as much as I can afford them by the Google, Microsoft, Apples, and the well-funded startups and the Spotifys of this world. How on earth am I going to do this? They are very practical things that we teach, and a subject to offer is actually a very valid team member. So you can have team members on your pitch deck, and you can have involved in the fundraising process, although you don't have to pay them because you can't afford them. Investors understand that very well. So focus honestly on what you want to do, making yourself different, very clear, crystal clear communications of why you're the leaner, faster, better, and to spend a lot of time on the team. I don't care what they look like. I don't care about their names. I don't care about the glorious titles that you're going to give them. Show me some color. Show me that he or she won some competition in coding. Show me she was the first one with React.js. She was the first one at doing this. If the companies they worked for are prestigious, put little logos. It gives 10,000 more times description about the quality and the skills you're bringing with you, instead of having a nice picture and a name. So yeah. I hope it answers this. Focus on the team. That's all you have to sell in the early stages.
No, absolutely. Joanna, how important is the funder's story, and what are the 3 top things that a founder should be doing when it comes to PR?
Well, very much, I think, echoing what Francois just said, the founder's story, or the story about how you created your company, is one of the best things that you've got to sell to the media, to through any content really, and partly because it captures both that head and heart, so it captures the sort of the attributes of whatever your product or service is, but it's also that emotion, the why did you do it, why have you invested your time in it, which actually a lot of people want to hear. We always say it's really worth capturing that in writing right at the beginning, because when we see companies maybe a few years down the line when they're looking to come into a new market, they've often forgotten to have captured that right at the beginning, and it's been passed through word of mouth through the company. It often comes out slightly different and changed. So it's really important to get that and to love it and to talk about it with passion all the time and absolute clarity. And then I think the 3 things that they should do in terms of their PR, if they're going to do some PR: make sure you get your messaging right, bearing in mind that messaging changes as a company develops, but get your messaging right. Make sure you're targeting the right audience. And then if you know those 2, you can choose the right method to communicate with them, whichever way that might be.
Okay, yeah, thank you, Joanna. Remember, audience, any questions, Please feed them through.
I'm hearing on the channel that it's been moved to Twitch, therefore there's no questions. They can't, I think they can't send us questions. That's what I'm reading on the side channel here. So that might be the reason why we're not hearing from anyone.
Okay. Okay. Well, Ricardo, if you can find a mechanism of feeding things, I've missed the side channel. I've got too many things on my screen, then please do so. I'll throw a couple of things in there. Which industries or aspects of tech in particular right now are investors most interested in? That's to anybody, but mainly Francois, you mainly?
I can start. I'll give you a few ideas. I'm sure you have examples as well. So the Nordics right now have really captured early the wave of, we are peaking toward, we're coming to a peak of evolution in hard technologies such as chipsets, motherboards. There are chips across every single device, tablets, mobile, and PCs. Prices are, in steady downfall. The volumes have not recovered. So you can pretty much say that the hard tech, where Scandinavia was so good in it with heavy engineering, is now plateauing, where the next phase, we are at year 0, and we all want it to be important, is health tech. We all want to live healthier lives for longer and preempt instead of try and fix. Obviously, we all know that governments now are completely broke. Pretty much all of Western Europe and the Western world cannot afford cure. Therefore, they all move into preempting and prevention. And so health tech is a very exciting sector, which a lot of Nordic companies have got fantastic stories to tell. It's a little bit early for some, or it's extremely complicated. So I spend most of my time helping companies make this available and understandable by their neighbor when they have a chat over the fence, or somebody in the bar. You have 30 seconds to explain. If you can't explain it simply, the old adagio, if you can't explain it simply, you don't know it well enough. And that is, especially in health tech, it's very easy to go well deep into enzyme carriers and delivery mechanisms that nobody will understand. You lose the attention, you lose your opportunity. So health tech is number one. Number two is all the subscription economy, where I think again, not thinking locally, because a 5 million market, you're only going to get at best 10% of that, and therefore it's a very small number. But the subscription economy, payment system, and everything that 10 years ago was creating a huge amount of friction to get quick onboarding and quick payments from customers, has been built mostly by large Scandinavian companies, now large companies. So that's why I'm expecting to see a continued, then we've almost plateaued, but it's still a massive industry as a whole. It's the gaming and e-gaming and esports, which are 3 sectors that have already shown, all the way to IPOs, and all the way, you all have a Candy Crush copy, whether you're hiding it or you're claiming it. But I think that this is something which is now booming. Esport has moved from $1 million prizes to $25 million prizes, and it keeps going up and up and up as the number of professional e-players is coming online. You have the first squad, Formula One, it's not Formula One, it's another event, but you have now professional squads being paid upfront advances to be competing with each other. So you have the entire ecosystem for an amazing new form of entertainment.
Yeah, thank you. One for you, Joanna. Does PR actually matter in today's world? Is it not a case of here today and gone tomorrow?
Kevin, I can't believe you're asking that question. Well, I think one thing that has actually sort of slightly shifted during COVID as well is that people are going back a lot to, we talked about it a little bit earlier, but to the central sort of the brand purpose and the meaning and what you're delivering. And I think that has become so much more important in the last year, really, but particularly this year. That actually, that one of the ways and one of the things that PR can do hugely well is to divulge and put across all those messages that are about transparency, honesty, all of that sort of thing has become much, much more important. Customers have definitely shifted their attitudes, consumers have shifted too. So I think brand purpose, brand mission, and then communicating that through PR mechanism, which is generally seen as being, third-party endorsement and therefore very valuable, is incredibly important, more so than ever before. Yeah.
So it does have an impact, as I knew, of course, it did.
Yes, I think it does. Absolutely.
I think I'd like to support Joanna. I think if you look at the most successful tech companies in the world, they are spending huge amounts on PR and marketing. Look at Coca-Cola, Apple, Microsoft, you know, all the big ones. I think the PR budget is beyond what we expect.
Okay. One very short question with a potentially big answer, so let's try and keep the answer quite short as well. Cultural differences between, I'll focus on Sweden as one of the Nordic countries. How much does the culture vary between the UK and Sweden? I mean, that's a big question. Each of you, 30 seconds or less.
I can even tell you that the cultural difference between Norway and Sweden is actually quite large as well.
Yeah. Yeah, okay, no, that's fine.
So within the Nordic countries, there are very big differences between Norwegians and Danish and Danish and Swedish. So it's the same everywhere. You tend to think it's quite similar, but it isn't. So I think, again, it just has to do with you need to understand it, and you need to have someone on board that is local, or if you, like Francois, have lived long enough in a country that you understand it yourself.
Yeah, I guess that's a common view for the rest of the panelists.
I can add to that. So, you know, across the board, obviously the three countries are radically different. So we should never put Nordics into one bag, sadly, because it would make things so much easier, better, bigger market. It'd be so good to see a united Nordics, but that's not going to happen anytime soon.
Someone tried a few hundred years ago.
Yes, that's right. It was bloody. I'm not sure we want that again. I think the characteristics that we see coming in, those are, so I'll pick up Sweden. Those are the explorers and the Americans of the North. Just do it, be yourself, be stripy and cool and funky and ahead. So they are more Americanized than the other two countries, I would say. And there is a tendency to over-engineer things because of the culture, because of the high IQ education system over there. You come up with really smart guys who don't necessarily have access or a view or a personal experience in living outside of that circle, and their circle tend to be very IQ, high IQ. So they come outside into the UK and realize that the UK is made of, we have outstanding universities too, but as a whole, the entire market is way less technical and prone to learn new technologies and take technology risk like the local markets in Nordics. So you have to, again, tune down, explain simply. It's not because you're right or because the technology is that far ahead that the market will follow you. There's plenty of technologies which are 10 years too early that, are waiting for us humans to catch up with, to catch up on.
I'm very conscious of time now, so just a couple of minutes from a final comment from each of you, if I may. So Vegard, top tip to the audience for closing on their first customer outside the Nordics. How important is that?
Yeah, 2 tips. First, have a customer in your home market first and use that as a reference. Yeah. That will also tell the others that your product is verified. Second, again, have some local experienced feet on the ground. I think that's my two top.
Joanna, marketing PR angle, what should they focus on? If they get one thing right, what should it be?
I think they've got to, and this is the challenge really, but the challenge is working out what the one thing that's going to match their business objectives and give them the greatest return in the short term. And the challenge is therefore working out what that one thing needs to be. And making sure you implement it really, really well. So don't spread yourself too thin. Sometimes people say, I'm going to go for every social media channel out there. Probably wasted. Focus and do one thing really well. You can always extend later.
Yeah, good tip. Francois, big answer again, but you've got 30 seconds. Who are they going to speak to? Where are they going to get their money from?
So 2 tips. One is prepare. It's incredible how people think they've got a 12-slide deck and they're ready to go to market. Then they get slaughtered by a long series of questions. Fundraising is a marathon. It's not a sprint. And therefore, you need to have all your documentations ready. You need to understand what the investors want to hear. Even if they don't tell you anything, you're going to have to come up and deliver almost like the tags, the keywords that they need to hear. Otherwise, no deal. Yeah. So prepare well, then go to market. No chit chat, no coffee chats. Every point of contact is an opportunity for them to let you go. And number 2, coming to the UK in particular, is change your culture. It's a massive market, and therefore you have to adapt to what the investors here are used to. A huge market potential, direct bridge to America and a huge number of opportunities, but the competition is up there. So you coming in with 3 Swedish small-time startups as your list of competitors, you'll get destroyed. So, you know, you have to research the UK market. You'll see that your genius idea, which nobody thought of in Sweden, actually has been done, tried, possibly failed twice in the UK. So don't be the idiot that doesn't know its market. As soon as they spot that you don't know your market, they're not going to invest. And otherwise, come and see us. Fundraising weekend, we'll help you. Here is the pitch.
Perfect. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you to all panelists. Thank you to the audience today for listening to this Raise panel discussion. I hope that you enjoy the rest of your day and the awards this evening. Thanks. Bye, everyone.
Thanks.
Bye.
Thank you, everyone.